Well, it's so good to have all of you connecting with us today. We're in this series, Brave, and we've been following along the storyline of a guy named Joseph. And in fact, we're looking at 5 very specific actions, realities that Joseph faced that just could have completely obliterated his relationships. And oh, by the way, these 5 actions, these 5 realities, I'm sure, well, all of us have faced at some point along, our journey of life. The first one we looked at was betrayal. Betrayal is the absolute obliteration of trust. It's that moment when you look at that person who's in one of your most inner of circles and you think or you say, out of all the people, I can't believe that you would. And what falls right after that is, I trusted you. Betrayal is like a sledgehammer to the middle of our emotional foreheads. Betrayal brings along with it so much hurt, so much pain, so much shrapnel that just shreds apart relationships. Well, the second one we looked at was resentment, where betrayal is like a sledgehammer. Resentment is that really quiet whisper, that drip, drip, drip. And it just reminds us, that's not fair. I did everything right. I did everything right in the relationship, and it's not turning out right. That's not fair. And all of that leads to, where we're going today, the A. What's interesting about the A, that action, that reality, is that if we don't heal from that, if we just allow that to fester, not only does it impact that one relationship, it now connects to every other relationship. If we don't heal from this action, it will shove every other relationship away from you. You'll create so many massive walls between you and every other person, no matter what circle they're in your life relationally. And the and is so important. The A impacts your relationship with God. And for you, maybe you're listening, watching here today because, you need to hear this. Because there's truth attached that I think will help you go on, begin a healing journey that will not only start to heal your relationship with God, but every other relationship that's in any of your relational circles. Where we left off in this story last week, in part 3, Joseph was thrown into prison. And this is what we're told, that the warden, the prison warden, paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. Over and over again in the story, we see this reality that we talked about in part 3. I talked about divine sovereignty, God's part, and human responsibility, our part. In fact, we see this at play throughout the storyline of Joseph. In fact, throughout the entire storyline of the Bible, it's true in your life and my life that God's sovereignty, the divine sovereignty, God's part, that God is going to do everything he's going to do and accomplish. But yet he relies on us, human responsibility. And God's a patient God, and sometimes God just kind of puts himself on the sidelines until we go, okay, God, we're ready to walk with you. We're ready to have you lead our lives. Okay, we're going to re-engage. God's patient. Let me start over, Brendan. I do not need to go into any of that. And I don't know why I did. I mean, I want to go into part of it, but not all of it. Okay. Well, so good to have all of you connecting with us today. We're in this series titled Brave, and along this series, we've been following along the storyline of a guy named Joseph. And specifically, we've been shining the spotlight on 5 very specific relational actions that creates so much hurt, so much pain, creates such a wide divide between us and other people. I mean, we see these in Joseph's life and how Joseph kind of navigated through all of them. And I know that all 5 of these have been true for my life and more than likely true for you as well. The first one we looked at was betrayal. Betrayal is the absolute obliteration of trust. It's that moment where you think or say to one of those people so close to you, out of everyone I know, I never thought you would. And right after that, you think or say, I trusted you. Betrayal is like an emotional sledgehammer right to the middle of our foreheads, isn't it? We feel it, and it hurts so deeply. Well, that one led to the next one, which was resentment. Where betrayal is like a sledgehammer, resentment is that very subtle, very quiet drip, drip, drip whisper. That's not fair. I've done everything right relationally, and it's not turning out right. And again, we got to pay attention to this. And we have to go on a pathway of healing. The third one, the one we're going to look at today, it's the A. Now, what's interesting about this one is if we don't heal from this one, it not only affects that one relationship. The A, it will splatter all over every relationship. In fact, this one, the A, creates so many massive walls between you and every single person in your relational circles. And is so important in this. If you don't heal from this, if you don't resolve this one, this will impact your relationship with God. And for some of you, this is why you're watching, you're listening, you're here today. Last week, we dropped off or paused the story of Joseph. Joseph had gotten thrown into prison, not because he'd done everything wrong. In fact, Joseph did everything right, and it didn't turn out right. And this is where we pause the story. The prison warden, paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. I shared a lot in part 3 about this truth that we see along the storylines in the Bible, and it's true in my life and it's true in your life. The reality is that there's divine sovereignty, and the flip side of that coin is human responsibility. Again, we see this in Joseph's life, we see this in the stories of the people in the Bible, and we see this in all of our lives. That God is going to do everything that God has promised to do. That's a divine sovereignty. God's going to accomplish everything he's going to accomplish. Over and over again, we read these words, that the Lord was with Joseph and that God gave Joseph success. Right? That's divine sovereignty. But we also read in whatever he did. That's Joseph's part. That's human responsibility. Over and over again, we see Joseph work hard, show up early, have the right attitude, show respect and honor to people in authority over him. Joseph did what he had to do, and God showed up. So now Joseph finds himself in prison. And we're told that sometime later, now we don't know how much time this is, but it's not days or weeks or even a few months. Some time later was a pretty significant amount of time. Again, we don't know exactly how much time, but again, he has been in prison a lengthy period of time. And we're told that, two new kind of characters in the story emerge. The cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt offended their master, the king of Egypt. The cupbearer and the baker ticked Pharaoh off. What they did, we don't know. But they found themselves in jail. Pharaoh was so angry with both of them that the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and he put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard, in the same prison where Joseph was confined. Just by accident? Just by chance? I think not. Remember, divine sovereignty. And the captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph, and Joseph attended them. Now, I want to pause there for a quick moment. It's one thing to be a prisoner. I mean, that's a horrific life. It's another thing to be a slave. Horrific life. But did you catch what's going on with Joseph? He's a prisoner now, and then he's put in charge as a slave in the prison to attend, to serve, to be the slave of the baker and the cupbearer. This is how bad life is for Joseph. And we can't miss that emotionally, mentally, just in reality. I mean, Joseph is now in prison having to serve other prisoners. And after they had been in custody for, and here's this phrase again, some time, each of the two men, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were being held in prison, had a dream the same night. And each dream had a meaning of its own. Now, I want you to pay attention of how the ancient storyteller of this story writes these words. They each had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. You see, in ancient cultures, they believed that the gods, lowercase g, spoke to humanity in dreams. So if you want to know what the gods wanted to have you do, what they were wanting from you or for you, or what was going to happen, right? It was in dreams that gods primarily spoke. One of the most famous stories we have in our Bibles, you're familiar with it, it's the Christmas story, right? We see these Persian priests, we call them magi. They're magicians, astrologers, and dream interpreters. It was very common. And I love that part of the Christmas story because God sends these pagan priests to worship Jesus. Well, we see these dream interpreters not only in the Persian Empire, we see it in the Babylonian Empire, and in the Egyptian Empire. The Egyptians, their gods, all the time spoke through dreams. In fact, archaeologists have uncovered what's been titled the Papyrus Chester Beatty III. This is so fascinating. This document dates around 1200 BC. The story of Joseph is somewhere between 15 and 1600 BC. So Joseph happened about 300 to 400 years before this papyrus was written. But what we get a sneak peek in on is how developed this whole dream culture is. You see, when you look at this papyri, you'll see it all in columns. Now, they're all hieroglyphs, right? So you can't read it unless you're an expert. If you are, that's really cool. But when you look at the columns, how this papyri is laid out is one column is the dream. Then they either say the dream was good or bad, and then the next column was the meaning. Again, think about what we just read here in Genesis, right? They had a dream, and there was a meaning attached to it. This is how the Egyptians handled dreams. And we have a sneak peek. This is a dream manual, right? That they started writing down what the dreams were and what the meanings were. Here's one of them in this papyri. Submerging in a river, if you have a dream about that, it's good. And this means purification from all evils. If you have a dream about eating crocodile, which I don't know if you have, I've eaten crocodile before. It's kind of like a greasy chicken. Not great, but hey. So if you've ever had a dream about eating crocodile, that's good. It means acting as an official amongst his people. Now, if you have a dream about well, seeing your face in the mirror, that's bad. This means another wife. That's bad. And if you have a dream that your bed's on fire, that's bad. This means driving his wife away, right? And I just thought to myself, what if you have a dream that you're in a bed that's on fire as you look in the mirror? Do 2 bad dreams equal a good? I don't know. But again, the rhythm of this entire document, this dream manual, right? You've got a dream, it's good or bad, and there's a meaning to it. And we step back into this story. And we're told that when Joseph came to them the next morning, he saw that they were dejected. So he asked Pharaoh's officials, the cupbearer, the baker, and said, "Why do you look so sad today?" Now this, I think about if it was me, if I was Joseph, I've been betrayed by my brothers. I did everything right. I had all the right guardrails up to protect myself from Potiphar's wife. I had my no ready. I established guardrails. I ran from her. I did everything right, and it didn't turn out right. I find myself in prison. Not only am I in prison, I'm now a servant to other prisoners, right? It can't get any worse than that. I'm just being honest, do I think I'd wake up that morning and care about other people's needs? I would like to think I would, but I don't know, because life's really bad for Joseph. But what does Joseph do? He sees that they're sad. He sees that they're dejected. He sees their hurt. He sees their pain. He sees them. Joseph looks through his hurt, looks through his pain, and he sees theirs. And he asks them, "Why are you so sad?" And they go, "We both had dreams, but there's no one to interpret them. There's no one to tell us their meaning." Now I think about Joseph. Years before, if you go all the way back to part 1, we looked at this part of the story. Part of what got Joseph thrown into a cistern and then sold into slavery was the jealousy of his brothers. I mean, most of that was on on all of his brothers' shoulders. Like, they had to own most of it. But Joseph didn't help things out. In fact, he wore the coat. He shouldn't have worn that, right? That just enraged their jealousy. And Joseph, years before this, had a couple dreams that God gave him. Now, Joseph should have just held those dreams tight to his chest, but he didn't. He shared those with his brothers and his dad. And I think about this moment. All of a sudden, Joseph finds himself years and years later through a lot of hardship. And all of a sudden, now he's in prison as a servant in Egypt. And they're like, "We had dreams. Can you help us out?" I just wonder if all of a sudden Joseph's mind starts to go back years. That God was working in the midst of bad for good. And Joseph says, "Sure, share with me your dream." And the cupbearer steps up and shares him the dream. He goes, "Hey, Joseph, this was my dream. There was a vine with 3 branches. On those branches were really big, plump grapes. And I picked those grapes up and I squeezed the juice into a cup. I handed that to Pharaoh. What does it mean?" And Joseph probably pauses for a moment and he's like, "The dream's good." Cupbearer had to get a big smile on his face. He was like, "Yeah, so what does it mean?" Joseph's like, "This is what it means. In 3 days, Pharaoh's going to release you from prison and he's going to restore you back into your position." The cupbearer had to just be overwhelmed with excitement. Like, only 3 more days in prison and he gets his job back. And in that moment, Joseph seizes an opportunity. He looks at the cupbearer and says, "Hey, when all goes well with you, remember me and show me kindness. Mention me to Pharaoh and get me out of this prison. Hey, cupbearer, hey, just remember, hey, this is going to happen. Just don't forget me. Don't forget me. In fact, if you move on to verse 15, Joseph literally tells him part of his story. He's like, hey, I'm innocent. I was sold. I'm not even an Egyptian. I'm not from here. Like, I was wrongly mistreated, and I did everything right. I'm innocent. Get me out of jail. And you could just feel the hope surge within Joseph. Maybe this is the time. Maybe this is the time. Maybe this is the time he's going to actually get freedom. Well, the baker was standing right there, and the baker was all excited because, right, good dream. So the baker walks up, and Joseph's like, well, tell me your dream. And the baker starts to tell him his dream. It's kind of similar, but kind of different. The baker goes, there was three like baskets of bread and pastries. They looked amazing. And the baker goes, and those baskets were on my head. Kind of weird, but dreams were kind of weird. And he said, and the birds were eating the pastries out of the baskets on my head. What does it mean? And Joseph paused, and it's like, it's not good. It's kind of bad. He's like, hey, baker, what you need to understand, in 3 days, Pharaoh's going to kill you. You're going to die. Your life is over. Well, in 3 days, both dreams come true. The cupbearer gets released and gets restored into his position, and the baker, well, he's executed. And then we're told that the chief cupbearer, however, did not remember Joseph. He forgot him. And Joseph sat in prison another 2 years. 2 years. I mean, already we've had two sometimes. Again, we don't know how long sometime was, but it was a lengthy number of time. But now we're told specifically, he sat in prison another 2 years. And I have to think that Joseph had to feel completely abandoned. I mean, there's the A action. Abandoned. Abandoned by the cupbearer. I mean, Joseph got his dream right. He got freedom. He got his position back. He got his influence. He got his paycheck. I mean, he got it all back, and he forgot him and abandoned by God. I just wonder, as Joseph sat there and replayed the previous years of his life, wondering, hey, God, where are you? Hey, God, what say you? Hey, God, I know I haven't done everything right, but I've done a lot of really good things. God, I've kept my chin up. I've worked hard. I showed up early. I did everything right to try to honor Potiphar and his wife. And look at me now. God, I know I didn't handle everything right with my brothers, but I didn't deserve this. Hey, God, I walked up as a slave in prison, saw that they were sad. Man, I served them. Love first. This is what loving looks like. Hey, God, where are you? What did I deserve for this? But you see, even if Joseph had moments like that, I mean, I think that's just human. He was working through all of those feelings. And there's something that Joseph started to understand. You see, you might not see what God is doing, but it doesn't mean he's not moving. You might not see what God is doing, but it doesn't mean he's not working. You might not see what God is doing, but it doesn't mean he's not orchestrating something to turn your bad into good. Well, 2 years had passed. And all of a sudden, one night, Pharaoh has a couple dreams himself. He calls in all of his priests and magi to tell him these dreams. And the first one was about 7 cows, really big, fat, healthy cows. And they were standing there as he stood in the Nile. And all of a sudden, 7 more cows emerged, but these were really gaunt. I mean, they were unhealthy. But the unhealthy, gaunt cows consumed up the 7 very healthy cows. Again, weird, but it's a dream. The second dream was very similar to the first, but this time it had to do with wheat. All of a sudden, 7 stalks of grain grew up, tall, healthy stalks of grain. And then all of a sudden, 7 more spread out, but these were like weathered. The wind and the sun had weathered them and withered them, but these 7 unhealthy stalks of grain consumed the healthy ones. And as Pharaoh called in all of his priests and magi, magicians, dream interpreters. And he said, "What's the meaning of this?" And there was silence across the palace because no one knew the meaning. And in that silence, all of a sudden, the cupbearer starts to remember something that happened 2 years ago. And it was the cupbearer that speaks up and says, hey, Pharaoh, today I'm reminded of my shortcomings. And the cupbearer tells Pharaoh the entire story, the story about this guy named Joseph in jail that was serving them, and the baker and his dream, and the cupbearer tells him his dream, and all of it. And all of a sudden Pharaoh goes, hey, go get Joseph for me. I want to see him now. And we're told that Joseph puts on new clothes and he shaves and he comes in front of Pharaoh, and Joseph is standing there, and it had to be an overwhelming moment. And Pharaoh says to Joseph, I had a dream and no one can interpret it, but I've heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it. And Joseph replies, I cannot do it. And I'm sure, just silence fell upon the palace because no one tells Pharaoh no, especially a prisoner slave. And then Joseph goes, but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires. So Joseph steps up and tells Pharaoh, hey, Pharaoh, this is what your dreams mean. He goes, both of them are similar to each other in meaning. You see, there's going to be 7 years of abundance, and then 7 years of famine. Hey, Pharaoh, there's going to be 7 great years, but then there's going to be 7 horrible years. But you see, this was God's part. This was the divine sovereignty, right? Joseph makes it clear that God can interpret his dreams, but then Joseph steps up to his part, and he shares some great leadership wisdom and insights to Pharaoh. I mean, what does Joseph have to lose? And listen to what he says to Pharaoh. He goes, and now let Pharaoh look for a discerning and wise man. Hey, Pharaoh, you need to find someone right now and put him in charge of the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh appoint commissioners over the land to take 1/5 of the harvest of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. They should collect all the food of all the good years that are coming and store up the grain under the authority of Pharaoh to be kept in the cities for food. This food should be held in reserve for the country to be used during the 7 years of famine that will come upon Egypt, so that the country may not be ruined by the famine. And the plan seemed good to Pharaoh and to all of his officials. So Pharaoh asked them, can anyone find anyone like this man, like this slave prisoner man, one in whom the Spirit of God is upon? Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has made all of this known to you, there is no one so discerning and wise as you. You shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people are to submit to your orders. Only with respect to the throne will I be greater than you. So Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt. I think about moments where we are abandoned, It's so easy to scream out to God, hey, God, where are you? For some of you, you had a dad walk out on you when you were a child, and you screamed to God, hey, God, where are you? I need my dad. For some of you, you had a mom that, addiction took her away emotionally and mentally from the house. Maybe physically she was still there, but her addiction just consumed all of herself, and you screamed out to God, hey, God, where are you? For some of you, you lost a child, and you screamed out to God. He's like, hey, God, where are you? For some of you, right, you gave all of yourself to a boss, to a manager, and all of a sudden they stabbed you in the back. You did everything right, and you found yourself just financially ruined because of that person. And you screamed out to God, hey, God, where are you? For some of you right now, you have an adult child that's completely severed their relationship from you, and you're just screaming to God, God, where are you? You see, when we are abandoned by someone, the immediate next step is we scream to God, God, where are you? And I want you to hear me say, you should scream to God. You should. But here's what I encourage you to do. You got to hold on to truth. You see, when we're abandoned by people within our relational circle, and when we scream to God, God, where are you? You got to hold on to the truth that God sees. That God sees you. Joseph's great-grandparents, Abraham and Sarah, they did some really great things, and God made a covenant with them that their descendants would be as numerous as the stars, and they did some highly dysfunctional, relationally destructive things. One of those dysfunctional, relationally destructive things was Sarah and Abraham wanted to have kids. They couldn't have kids, so they took things in their own hands. And Sarah one day takes Hagar, her servant, and says, hey, Abraham, husband, sleep with her. So they do. Hagar gets pregnant. How do you think it turned out? If you've never read the story, how do you think that turned out relationally for the three of them? Horrible. Jealousy erupted, tension, relational shrapnel. It's horrible. So bad that one day Hagar runs for her life. Again, remember, this is Joseph's great-grandparents. He would have known this story. And when Hagar was in the desert, God comes to her, meets her right where she was. And this is what we're told. Hagar gave this name to the Lord who spoke to her. You are the God who sees me, for she said, I have now seen the one who sees me. That phrase, God who sees me, is Jehovah Elroy. God who sees me. And the truth, when you feel abandoned by someone, when you feel abandoned by God, you just have to hold on to the truth that God sees you. I think that's what, Hagar, running for her life, abandoned, rejected, betrayed. All of that was real. And God meets her right where she is. And God sees her. You got to start there. That God sees you, which leads to the truth that God guides you. There's a moment where Moses is handing the leadership baton off to Joshua. And Joshua is leading God's people into the promised land. And Moses, directly to Joshua, but so all of Israel could hear him, says, the Lord himself goes before you. Before you. How many times has God been ahead of Joseph in this story? Over and over and over again. And will be with you. How many times have we read, have we heard in Joseph's story that God was with him? God was with him. And he will never leave you nor forsake you. Some of the most famous words from Jesus' mouth is, God, my God, why have you forsaken me? He screamed those words on the cross. Do you know what Jesus was quoting there? Psalm 22. Psalm 22 is what Jesus is quoting. Read it. You should read the whole psalm. David is screaming out to God, pouring his hurt and pain out to God. And Psalm 22 starts with, my God, why have you forsaken me? And it is a difficult read because there's some things not resolved, but you see David leaning into God as God is guiding him. as God is leading him. It was Jesus on the cross that goes, hey, in the moments where it feels like God has abandoned you, he hasn't. You see, you might not see what God is doing, but it doesn't mean he's not moving. It doesn't mean he's not working. It doesn't mean he's not ahead of you. So hold on to it. Hold on to truth. And God heals. God heals. I just want you to know, if you've been abandoned, God heals. I think about the psalmist who writes these words. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. He determines the number of the stars and calls them what? Each by name. Why? Because he sees you. You see, my encouragement for you, and we see this in Joseph's life. He's a servant, a slave, as a prisoner. That morning he gets up and he sees the hurt. He sees the sadness. He sees the pain within the cupbearer and the baker. And what does he do? He steps through his hurt and into their hurt. Notice I didn't say step over. Notice I didn't say sidestep your hurt. No. You got to step through your hurt. You got to step through your pain. You got to step through your resentment, your betrayal, your abandonment. You got to step through it. It's still part of you. And step into. And you can't heal anyone else, but you can come beside them and walk with them. And you know what happens when we do that? You know what happens when we do that? God not only helps that person go on their healing journey, but then God in return helps us heal ourselves. You see across this storyline, I mean, we know the ending. Genesis 50:20, when Joseph looks at his brothers and say, what you intended to harm me, God intended it for good, for the saving of many lives. God had been shaping those words. As Joseph was in the cistern, as Joseph ran out of Potiphar's house, doing the right thing, getting thrown into prison, as Joseph was abandoned for another 2 years, Joseph is holding on to the truth that God had been whispering into his soul. Hey, Joseph, there's a lot of bad in this world, and there's people that want to intend to harm you, but remember, I can take any bad and work for good. Trust me. I see you. I want to guide you. I want to heal you. And that's true for me. That's true for Joseph. And it's true for you. Let's pray. Lord, I just pray that every single person will hold on to that truth. That God sees them, knows them by name. That God is leading, guiding them. We're just called to follow you, God, even when we don't understand. Even when we can't see you working, even when we can't see you moving. And Lord, I pray that we'll hold on to the truth that you are a God that heals. And you have called us to step through our hurt, our pain, into other people's, and together we can heal. It's the beauty of relationships. So Lord, may we hold on to you, knowing that you will never let us go. In your name I pray. Amen.